David Shearer.
Mr Speaker, I move that the Electricity Transparency Bill be now read a first time, and I nominate the Government Administration Committee to consider the bill. Sir, this bill is about protecting consumers, and it's the guard against householders being screwed because they are, or if they're not, they don't know whether they are or not because their bills, their electricity bills, are so obscure and so opaque that they don't actually know what's going on. And this bill is very simple. It simply gives power to the consumers to see what part of the electricity bill is being charged at what rate. And if there's any change, they can see that from day to day, from bill to bill. And they're able to go over to the next door neighbour or whoever and be able to compare one bill against another and see that what sort of a rate their neighbours are getting. So it's about transparency. It's about transparency of pricing, and that transparency of pricing will encourage competition. So the idea is, first of all, to unbundle the bills so that there is a clear separation from the various components of the electricity bill. And secondly, as a part of that, to put a percentage, estimate a percentage of what part of that bill is actually generated by renewable resources. It's an effort to be able to show people and therefore give some sort of impetus towards renewables as opposed to fossil consumption. So we have an electricity system that's relatively complex, as they are all over the world. We have generators, which are in terms of hydroelectricity, whether it's geothermal, whether it's wind, whether it's coal-fired. Those generators generate electricity. The electricity goes into the grid, which is looked after by Transpower, which is a state-owned monopoly. And from Transpower, off that grid, comes the local lines groups, whether that be Orion or Vector or the Lines Company or whatever. Each part of the country has their own lines company. And finally, sir, the electricity is delivered to the householder and billed the householder by the retailer. Now, a few months ago, when I put this bill in, sir, and this hasn't changed since that time, power prices were going up. And each of those components, whether it be the power companies or the lines companies, were each pointing the finger at each other and saying that it was the fault of the power company, or it was the fault of the lines company that their power bills were coming up. And the remarkable thing about this was that nobody could actually disaggregate what was actually going on. So even the Electricity Authority, Consumer New Zealand, a whole bunch of different people, when they sat back and looked at it, could not see what the different parts of the electricity bill were being made up in the bill, what parts were going up and what was staying static. And an unseemly row broke out. Contact pointed the finger, for example, at Wellington Power. Wellington Power told them that they were liars. The whole thing went round in an unseemly circle. But the bottom line and the key issue here was that consumers were not able to see what was happening in their power bill, and they should have been. I mean, we all should know what components of our electricity bill is made up by what parts. I mean, surely that is it's straightforward. And let me give you another example. Vector, the lines company in Auckland, was told by the Commerce Commission that they were charging too much. They had to drop their lines charges by 9%, which they did under law. They were obliged to. What they expected to see was that drop flow through into people's power bills. It never happened. Why not? Because the power companies absorbed that windfall, if you like, to themselves and didn't pass it on. And actually nobody knew, because there was nothing out there that was going to be able to indicate to them that the power bills had changed. So in New Zealand we have these, in a sense, these conglomerates who hide behind, have a pretty comfortable existence. Whether they be the banks or the power companies or the building supplies companies or whoever. And I believe that consumers need and deserve a better deal, and that's what this bill is about. It's about unbundling our electricity bill so that we can see what's going on and we can make choices on the basis of that, and that in turn would encourage competition. Now, the main electricity body in the country is the Electricity Authority, and they're charged with trying to ensure that there is sufficient competition in the electricity sector. And so the Electricity Authority, after this happened, announced that they were going to do a survey and do some analysis on unbundling these bills and providing more transparency. And so they went out and they spent thousands of dollars and they talked to everybody, and surprise, 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 the electricity companies came back and said, we don't need any more transparency. The consumers have enough transparency. Contact Energy said not only have they got enough transparency, but it would be too expensive for us to do it, and actually we're not sure if we could actually do it anyway. This is despite the fact that we've got telecom companies all across the country who can give you almost minute by minute what your phone bill is, but a power company as large as Contact that has just spent tens of millions of dollars on its billing system cannot give you a breakdown of what your bill is. And then along comes Flick, a small retailer who's able to give you not only a breakdown of your power bill by sector, whether it be the generator, the transpower, the grid, or the lines company, but can tell you hour by hour what the price of electricity is. So for Contact and others to say that this is somehow impossible for them is absolute nonsense. So there's a conspiracy and a cloak of opaqueness and convenience around power bills, which benefit the power companies at the expense of the consumer. And I want to see the consumer getting a better deal. Unfortunately, I believe that the Electricity Authority is more of an apologist for the status quo and what's going on, rather than stepping up and being on the side of the consumers, which is actually part of its rationale and its statement. In fact, it really only it's talking to the people in the know. If you ever had a look at its website, I can guarantee that 90% of New Zealanders wouldn't spend more than about 3 seconds on there, because everything is so densely presented there that nobody could actually make sense of what it's saying and what it's doing, and it's certainly promoting the status quo above what consumers would want to think of as an electricity authority that's standing up for them. So, sir, this bill, and as a member's bill, which I'm asking for support right across the House, because let's face it, this is something that the National Party I would imagine would be wanting to support. Simon Bridges, the Energy Minister, I was at a panel with him where he said, yes, he thinks billing will need to be broken down into its component parts. He's on record saying that. So in a sense, it's part of what he wants to do. It's part of, I would have thought, the ACT Party's agenda of giving consumers, after all, the C in ACT stands for consumers, the benefit of actually having good information and transparent information so they can make good choices. Unfortunately, sir, I don't think that people right now are able to make good choices because they're not getting good information. So this is the chance of the people in the House here, sir, to vote on a bill to get it through this first reading to Select Committee, so that we can actually bring in the various components that make up our electricity system in New Zealand and have them talk about what transparency means. To have Flick alongside Genesis and Contact and say, is this possible or is this not? Why can't consumers have good information? Why do they have to rely on the press releases of power companies or lines companies in order to be able to get proper information? Incidentally, the Electricity Authority came out, their recommendations after they're spending tens of thousands of dollars on this analysis was to have some guidelines, which of course nobody is adhering to. I mean, guidelines is the lowest bar that you can possibly come up with in terms of recommendations. So, sir, I say again, this is a bill which is on the side of consumers, which is promoting transparency, which gives not only information about billing on those various parts of an electricity bill so somebody can see whether they're getting a good deal or not, but it also provides some information about the sustainability aspect of their bill as well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.